um, that if we remember that last week, Jane Korsberg recommended the book on revenge to us. Uh, Deuteronomy and both Psalms seem pretty revenge-like to me.
Yeah, they sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know in some of my Bible classes I've taken, biblical archaeology says that, kind of what we read in the Bible. They said there's actually a lot of times there's like no evidence that some
Right.
of these wars have happened.
Yep.
And so they think that the Bible writers were trying to make like a kind of a different type of point, not like a historical one,
Right.
but
So that I think that's a very legitimate thread to consider. If let's say if these stories aren't historical, and Amy, that evidence seems to be pretty pervasive. That what are the recorders of the story trying to do when they tell about a God who says, kill everyone?
Or maybe it's rationalization.
Say more.
Maybe this, when they wrote this, they made that story about God. It doesn't necessarily mean it's God, but they need to rationalize what they did.
Okay.
That's a thought. Rationalize what they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, and I will tell you, I might have to get out. I got new hearing aid thingies, and they're not working. What you said, Mary Lou, and then also the concept that what they're trying to get through, if this didn't happen, still that they are to only worship the God who saved them, God, rather than take on all of the cultural
Yeah.
little gods of the people. That I know this bothers me too, especially when they say the children and all. I'm thinking, really, like,
Really.
if I disappear, it's just to go. This is brand new and it's not working.
So this is, I think, an interesting. So he pairs this with Psalm 130. McLaren pairs the Deuteronomy story with Psalm 137, which I think is a beautiful story of resistance. So, I mean, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and there we wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows, there we hung our harps. For there our captors asked us for songs, and our tormentors asked for mirth, saying, Sing us one of the songs of Zion. How could we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand wither, let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. Remember, O Lord, against the Edomites, the day of Jerusalem's fall. How I mean, I know the time periods are different, but this is a song of what happens. What happens when a population
Gets destroyed.
gets destroyed? Yeah. Go ahead, Jane Korsberg.
Well, I'm wondering if, the psalm doesn't also reflect what those Canaanites, Hittites, Jebusites felt when they were
Yeah.
moved. And there always seems to be a pattern of God moving on, whether it's spiritually or culturally or geographically. It's like we are not meant to stay put in many ways.
Yeah.
And we all some of us like to stay put.
Stay put. So
And yet,
go ahead.
the land, freedom from slavery in Egypt for which there is no archaeological evidence or historical evidence, and Jerusalem are so completely central to Jewish belief, practice, prayer,
Yeah.
Identity.
Yeah.
identity. Yes.
Yeah.
It didn't fall from the sky, did it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did it fall from the sky?
Hmm.
Well, and I think that that's the sort of the segue into what McLaren is writing about, and on page 47 he says this episode in the biblical story, more than any other, forces us to deal with one of life's most problematic questions, the question of violence. By violence, we mean an act that intends to violate the well-being of a person or people. To help some, is God willing to harm others? Is God part of the violence in the world? And is violence part of God? And then he says, or is God the voice calling us in our violence to move to a new place, to join God beyond violence in kindness, reconciliation, and peace? Is that good? I mean, I think that's you're wondering, Sharon, is that the moving, isn't that, yeah, the moving on.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because in the Deuteronomy and in the other, what we hear so much is not moving on to kindness, reconciliation, and peace until we get, when Jesus comes down, comes to us and brings God's real message. I said real on purpose.
No,
Kindness, reconciliation, and peace.
and peace. Yeah.
Where does and this is where so many of my relatives who have turned away from the church look at the Old Testament and say, well, that can't, that's just wrong, so
Yeah.
that's a part of the problem. Is God willing to harm others?
Paula.
And what is the correlation between all of this relocation and whatnot and the colonization of our country and the removal of indigenous people from their land and the horrible way they're still treated? And I mean, I have never come to terms with that.
Yeah. That's a great observation and question.
And it's so obvious. You can see the rationalization throughout the Bible for that kind of treatment.
Yeah. Well, I think I was hoping to find some time to look through Peter Enns' book, because he talks about the evolution of the knowledge of God, that it evolves throughout the Bible.
Yeah, he does.
Which book
He
were you
does.
looking for, Catherine?
The one we read, what
I know,
the Bible
The
really
one that's
says.
falling apart.
Bible for real people. Okay.
No.
No, how the Bible actually works.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was his major theme in that book. And I was hoping to find the time to kind of find a good quote from there that really, sums it up.
You're exactly right. I mean, that is what Enns continues to point us to. And I think that's what McLaren is also pointing us to.
Yes.
And that, I mean, I found this, I got my John book finally out of a pile where I put it. Didn't remember I put it there. But this one is not exactly the same, but does some really good work on similar themes. I've recommended this one before. Creation Untamed, the Bible, God, and Natural Disasters. So this point, um, is a little different, but this author's his thesis is that violence is cooked into creation. So the kind of tumultuous violence of hurricane, of tornado, of tsunami, of earthquake, and then he does move just a little bit into human caused violence, and that remakes creation. And that point, I think, is very similar to McLaren's point and Enz's thesis that wisdom is baked into the stories, and that as we read, we need to be open to that wisdom that helps us understand how the story moves and where the story moves to, and that the story moves always toward, I mean, we talk about the arc, the story always moves beyond violence to kindness and reconciliation and peace.
Well, and even in Deuteronomy, on verse 6, he says, "For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the earth to be his people, his treasured possessions." I mean, that's very eloquent. It's his treasured possession.
But it does continue to, it is beautiful, a beautiful language and beautiful concept. And it continues to raise, though, the concerns that Sharon just brought before us is if you are okay, the question I want to ask is, are you and I included in verse 6? Are we chosen out of the peoples on earth to be God's peoples in this context, Sharon?
Well, and that's a hard thing to answer because it goes on to say it was not because you were more numerous than any other people that the Lord set his heart on you and chose you, for you were the fewest of all peoples. Well, Christians are not the fewest of all peoples, but one could legitimately argue that Jews are.
Yeah, yeah. I think that brings us to the Canaanite woman in Matthew. So we're reading this story on Sunday, Joe. We can make that connection. So one of the things about the Canaanite woman's context and Matthew's context. So we have moved from, in Matthew, this is just important to as we hear the Canaanite woman story, the feeding of the 5,000. Now Jesus was there with a Jewish crowd, right? They were all there together, and Jesus feeds them bread and fish. Then we have some more, we have the healing, and we have the walking on the water, things that defile. And then we move into the Canaanite woman's face. Okay, so what do we know from the get-go about this story? She is an outsider. She is identified by one of those who was thrown off or killed from that land in Deuteronomy, right? So she's, and then we move to the feeding of the 4,000, which is no longer a crowd of Jews, but is a crowd of Gentiles. So, so this Canaanite woman story is really programmatic, and Jesus's story for a sort of, it's the same change as in John and the woman at the well. He answers her in verse 24, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. He answered, it is not fair. He's making this argument. No, I'm not here for you. I'm only here for the Jews. And she says, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. And Jesus is now convinced. And he answers her, Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish. So I mean, it might be two little lines, but this is huge. This is huge.
Yeah.
And the expansion of Jesus's ministry. And I think I don't think it answers all of our questions, but I do think it helps us see that even Jesus as a human being is capable of the sort of thing that these authors want us to see in the Old Testament, that expansion from beyond violence, beyond exclusion, beyond all of that to kindness and reconciliation, peace, inclusion. I mean, this is the story that brought the outsiders in.
Mhm.
And was that also a message to those Jews that were present that, yes, you are the chosen people, but Jesus is saying, I am here to expand, to bring God's kingdom to all who have faith.
And not
Yes. Yes.
only that, but the message bearer becomes, I think, even as important. A woman who is a Canaanite. So
A woman
Yes.
who is.
who is a Canaanite. So Louise, everything you just said is absolutely true, and it's just amplified
Yeah.
by the message bearer.
Right.
Yeah.
And it shows that Joshua must not have done a very good job because those Canaanites keep popping up.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I read
They just don't go
someplace.
with, just out of side trivia. I don't have a thing with me. The Canaanites would be geographically Iraq, Iran, that area, Saudi Arabia
Middle
today.
East.
I'll look it up.
Who knows our geography?
I'll look it up later.
But the old Mesopotamia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking, yeah, somewhere in there. Okay.
I read something not all that long ago that said from a DNA standpoint, Jews and Palestinians both trace back to Canaanite.
Mhm.
Well, that's
Wow.
interesting. So they did intermarry after all.
I'm sure they did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the instructions were don't do that. And really?
They did.
It's like saying, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teenagers.
Teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
gosh.
I think
I was wondering about, he talks about on page 50, asks, how do you respond to Matthew's story of the Canaanite woman in conversation with the Deuteronomy story of Canaanite slaughter?
Mhm.
Can you think of other paired stories like this?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. We've
That's
talked
one
about
thing he keeps doing is trying to make, you read a story and kind of think of another story that either is in opposition to that or is paired with that. I mean, we talked about the story of the Tower of Babel and Pentecost and creation in Genesis, amplified by John,
Mhm.
story of creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now
We'll
and now
have you
this
all
one.
biblical scholars eventually. Yeah, that's exactly what we do as we study the Bible. We
But
find
I can't think of another one. I couldn't think of another one.
The only other thing I can think of, and I can't pair it with it, would be the story of Rahab being saved, her family being saved. But you've got to help me think of the correlation in the New Testament to it. And I'm having, oh, there go. Okay, thank you, Amy.
Yay.
Oh, thanks,
I'll have to
Amy.
look that up and think about it.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I'm glad you raised that, Catherine, because that's what we need to always be doing is, sort of right when we read something, our ears, we should be thinking, oh yeah, I've read this in the Old Testament. That we might not be able to find it right away, but at least to know that that we've read that one before, and so then we ask the question, so how does that change with Jesus? Does that change with Jesus? Does it get rethought? Does it get, go ahead, Janet.
Well,
I'm just sitting here. I am thinking hard. I'm a bit overwhelmed by the news that a lot of those wars really didn't happen in the Old Testament. And I have to say, I don't like the Old Testament. I don't read it very much. And when I do, I get upset. But part of me is thinking, again, developmentally,
Yeah.
fighting and looking for territory is a much lower intellectual state. Um, just from what we know about psychology and stuff. And so I'm sitting here thinking, A, those wars maybe didn't occur. And B, they were hoping they did, or at least needed a place to show their superiority.
Hmm.
And then C, I'm thinking, my brain is going a little wacky here, but there's also some really nice people that are not engaged in the wars. I mean, the Canaanite lady, God love her. I love her. I think she was super cool, but what bravery. Because so many of the other people, I mean, not every single Canaanite was out there running around with spears, or whatever they use, rocks or whatever. And there were lots of quiet, gentle people from after Cain and Abel. I mean, there had to be people living in their villages, growing whatever they grew and milking their cows and stuff. And I just wonder why some people love to fight and stuff like that, but that's their issue. I don't want to make, I mean, and I really respect the military. My brain is just going wacky here. But I think Jesus came to say there's a different way. There's a different way, and it's not always about fighting, but there's still an awful lot of people in 2026 that think fighting is the really cool thing to do.
Yeah, the way
So I'm struggling with, okay, not all fighting is terrible. I would love to think that, but some people really believe in fighting, and I don't know what to do with that. As a Christian, I try really hard not to be argumentative or mean, but it's very difficult to slog through this.
it sure is.
From a developmental psych point of view, which I love. And I'm like, yeah, toddlers play in the sandbox and fight over nothing.
Yeah.
And then we tell the kids, oh no, you have to share, and you still fight. And then you're 45 years old and you're still fighting because you don't want to share. It's just,
Yeah.
and then I think the old Catholic in me is like, where's original sin? Does it exist? I'm just a little whacked here. But
You
anyway,
sure are on a
I'm
lot
working
of.
on it.
Well, I want to call your attention to on page 47 again. The paragraph begins, even as they prepare for war, They are told again and again. So, I mean, this is as the story is told. They are told again and again that after the conquest ends, they must treat aliens and strangers as neighbors with honor and respect, remembering that they once were aliens and strangers.
That they once were, they themselves.
They
Yeah.
themselves once were aliens and strangers.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think that that's what we have lost. That's what many have lost. Maybe not you and me have lost, but that's what so many have lost today is that instead of honor and respect, remembering that we were once aliens and strangers, which every single one of us here, our ancestors were aliens and strangers, that that is completely and absolutely forgotten. And that's where, I mean, I think that's where the arc of violence continues, rather
Yeah.
uh, rather than resolves.
Well, and I mean, as I was reading through this chapter, there are many in modern day Israel. I would say particularly Haredi, the ultra religious group that feels, like got to go back to Joshua and rid the land of these Canaanites because they're
Right.
still here.
Yeah.
And then I also think about, because he asks the question on page 50, this under number 5, this week listen for situations when people use God or some other good reason to justify violence or unkindness. Well, our Secretary of Defense continually makes connection between Christian righteousness and fighting.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have to be on the front line.
Well, yes. And likewise, the Haredi.
Yeah.
They do not send their children
Right.
to the IDF because their boys have to be studying and their girls have to support them.
Mhm.
You can tell how much I like that sect.
Well, and I think his question seek to see the world through their eyes, which is nearly impossible, and to imagine how hard it would be for them to see God differently. I mean, that's the call always, isn't it? To try and expand one's perspective, to try and understand the shoes that somebody else is walking in, etc. And it is so incredibly hard when somebody is antithetically opposed to the idea of loving justice, walking humbly.
On both sides, I would say. I mean, By the way, not to get all away from this, I assume we're going to stick with chapter 11 today.
No, we're going to 12.
Well, we only have 16 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to stick with 11, that's fine.
Well, one thing about that story of the Canaanite woman that there's that verse, knock and the door shall be opened
Yeah.
unto you.
Asking
She's very she just keeps after Jesus till she gets what she wants. She's very, and
Persistent.
persistent. Yeah, and I think that kind of persistence is something we can learn to emulate.
Okay.
Jesus, come to me.
Yeah.
Please come to me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
Yeah,
stories that
I've-
Jesus told was the woman, one of his parables was the widow that was
You're reading my
pestering this
mind, Louise.
judge,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
pestering the
just going to
judge.
say that.
Yeah.
And then the judge, whether he believed the widow or not, just to get
Yep.
her off of his tail, gives her what
Oh, yeah.
she wants.
Mhm.
She
That's
was
it.
Right.
persistent. And I think that's the lesson. Jesus was saying, be persistent, keep at it,
I-
don't give up.
I think that's exactly, the connection there. I think that's a little problematic anyway. Anyway, so we had Paula and then Janet.
I think McLaren sums up this whole chapter and this all that we've been talking about with the paragraph on page 49. I won't read it. You can read it. It starts with "We begin with," and I think that paragraph just kind of walks you through
Yeah.
where they were to where we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Janet?
I was watching, can you hear me? My thing says mute. I don't know why.
No, you're on.
Okay, I was watching PBS this week and they had a special interview done with a very high level person from Iran. And they've never let apparently too many Western people to to interrogate or question or have a conversation with a Western person. So they went in and they sat down, and it was a very nice looking guy in a military type outfit. And he was the Iranian who chose to speak to the Westerner. And the Westerner, they were both very polite, but it just astounded me that the military guy from Iran, when asked about the war in Iran and the stuff going on with the US, he said, "This is the will of Allah. And our belief is that we need to promote the thinking of Allah." And
Yep.
I mean, he opened up with this like little sermon, and it was truly remarkable. And I thought, okay, the Iranians have a cause here, and it's a cause about God, and we don't like it. But I thought, how often has Hegseth or Trump ever opened up with, "We're doing this because God has called us"? And I
think Hegseth believes that.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
well,
Yeah,
So
does
Janet,
he?
I
did
have
he
to agree.
say what it was that God
What was
was calling them to?
to protect and to promote Allah, and to use missiles and things like that to continue to promote
To destroy
Allah.
us,
It
basically.
was like the Crusades or something.
So
I
it was
was
about protecting them and their land?
No.
Oh, that
No.
I'm asking Janet.
did you see it, Ann? Or I saw it, and it was very much a spiritual conquest for them. It was, and we've probably heard that where Muslims and stuff are like going, "No, we are here. We want to promote the purity of our faith."
Okay.
And promote violence if we need to make our cause known. That was the way I heard it. Now, I could have been wrong.
No, I just wanted to clarify how you heard
Yeah,
it.
I think so, Kath. I don't know, but I was just like dumbfounded.
Well, let's hang
Yeah.
on to that because we can make a
Okay.
connection with that one. So
Okay.
Jane Korsberg's next.
I'm going to pass.
Okay. I mean, the reason I think that's really important, Janet, to to know what to clarify what we think we are hearing is because we have people saying those very same things, that same message. And somebody said, that's what Hegseth is going for, and it doesn't necessarily. I mean, I'm not sure I think that Hegseth believes in God and the incarnation of Jesus Christ and suffering and resurrection like I do.
Right.
I'm pretty and the call to how one lives their life. I really am very convinced that he and others don't hear
Right.
that the same way as I
You
do.
know,
And
that's
I think that
because
that's really, really an important piece is that there is this pervasive, now how would you call that? In this country, we call it nationalism when
Oh, yeah.
a Christian faith is paired with a civic sort of operation. We call that Christian nationalism. What's the word that is called in
I
the
I
country
think it would be
that he was from? Dan?
I think it would be similar. It would be Iranian nationalism. My problem with
But
that,
so Christian
not Iranian,
nationalism,
but their or Islamic
okay,
nationalism.
maybe that's what that
Islamic,
Sectarianism.
yeah.
okay.
Well, they're not sectarian in Iran at all. It's totally a theocracy
Okay.
as far as what they do.
Which
My problem is
what many are the words that many in power are saying here in this country
Yeah.
would move toward theocracy.
Right. I agree.
So Anne, I cut you off. What more was there? Do you remember?
no. God told me to shut up and listen today. I can't give my opinions.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what's going on
it's
here?
interesting to me on page 49, the paragraph that starts with violence like slavery and racism was normative in our past and is still all too common in the present.
Right.
And the whole idea of after the conquest, we're called to take care of, be kind to, invite in the alien and the stranger. And one of the interesting things about October 7th in Israel was that the communities that were targeted by Hamas were communities on the border where the people were trying to reconcile with the people on the other side of the border, the people in Gaza. So, kind of against what both governments were proclaiming, they would help Palestinians get to work. They would take them to doctor's appointments and all kinds of things like that. And I think it was that they were targeted purposefully by Hamas, that it was no mistake that it was that community. And
why?
so it's like a perversion of what both Jews and Christians and Muslims are called to do, to honor the stranger, those who are not like us. It's in their best interest to promote dissent, division.
And we can talk all about the whole money part of what that is. Okay, Jane Korsberg and
Okay, this is what I was thinking of before. As
Yeah.
Sharon just said, does not Jesus with the Canaanite woman look like, I'm sorry, this isn't for you. I'm here for the Jewish people, my people only. And then it just feels like that. It feels like mean Jesus.
It does feel like mean Jesus. And then she stands up and gives them what for.
Right.
And that's, it's the turning point.
Yeah.
It was human. Maybe it was frustrated.
Frustrated Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've seen mean and frustrated Jesus, right? He's going to be making an appearance here fairly soon when he's having his temple tantrum. So, yeah. but she stands up to him.
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
sure does. And I
Mhm.
think that's I mean, that's why I think this is
Yeah. I mean, she sways his thinking.
yeah. That's why it's such an
Or at least pretends to, because he probably believed this all along, and he was just
Pretends.
making
That
a
too.
little object
Good point,
lesson
Janet.
here.
yeah.
That's why mid-roshing is fun.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but and so he goes, he goes on to feed all of these people who are not Jews,
Mhm.
who are
Mhm.
clearly Gentiles,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And talk about honoring the other. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Anne Wonky, you're gonna jump
Oh,
in.
I was just gonna close with something I was thinking, bringing it back into the more, quote, modern era.
Yeah.
The other day was our feast day for Florence Nightingale.
Mm,
I was thinking about how the treatment, and I've been reading so many times, she and others were treating both sides in the Civil War,
right.
where it didn't matter. And some of our ancestors, where they were opening their houses if the young men were wounded, and they just found and are reburying a young 16-year-old that they've identified that was fighting for the Confederate side. That no,
He was in the Crimean War,
no, I'm talking about the Civil War.
but she wasn't in the Civil War.
No,
That's right.
she's
She
She was in
moved
the
on to a
Crimean
different.
War.
She was
Okay,
Crimean War.
yeah.
That she was working for both. Well, yeah, I was looking at some other things on the Civil War.
Well, but I
Thank
think
you.
that's true of even into World War II, that
Well, yes.
Yeah.
was that Geneva Convention by then, that any who were hurt and wounded would be treated.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the rule.
Geneva Convention, I think, was later, but I'm not sure.
But they did.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
are we going to
Yeah.
just redo 12 next week?
There's a lot in 12 about interpreting what
Yeah.
we're reading. I kind of think I don't know, we could do 12 and 13.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we get off that whole 11 and 12, the odd and then the even. I get confused. Okay, but that's fine. I can.
What do you want me to put 13 as well
Why
or
don't you
not?
put, yes, I want you to put definitely that we didn't get to 12, so that's where we begin. And read 13, and if we get there, we get there.
Okay.
The Bible
Thank you.
verses, please.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Jane, I put them in every single email.
I missed it this time somehow.
Well, I resent it to you.
Oh, thank you.
Don't you have the book, Jane?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I think I could find that interview. He
Oh.
was the head of the Revolutionary Guard that Janet was referring to on PBS.
Okay.
If anyone else is interested in it, it was pretty interesting.
It was very interesting. Yeah, thanks for finding that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, and thanks to Amy for something she mentioned, because I just saw it on Facebook that in the Jewish faith today is the first day of, is it pronounced Elul?
Elul.
Elul.
And
Happy
so we should
Elul.
all read Psalm 27.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Top 20.
Every day of Elul, you're supposed to read.
Oh, how long does
Oh,
27
thank you.
how long does this one last?
till Rosh Hashanah.
Which is
So-
when?
It's a month.
I can look it up.
Sort of like our
I've got
Advent
it
or
in my
Lent,
calendar. Let me see.
preparation time. Okay, I will see you all next week, God willing.
See ya.
Take care.
September 11th is Rosh Hashanah and the 20th is Yom Kippur.
Oh
Okay.
boy, that's
Thank
quite the
you.
date. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yeah. it's-
Wow.
Bye.
See you all next
Care.
week.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay.
Thank you,
Well,
Kat.
Bye.
We'll,
Thank you.
we'll see you all. Stay cool.